Hello, welcome to the Hideout tonight. We have a wonderful episode as usual. We're going to be giving our review, our recap, and our feedback on Wrestlemania 30. How it was good, how it was bad, the good, bad, ugly, shocking. Very shocking. And disturbing in some cases. But at any rate, we're going to get to it tonight. Join us for Wrestlemania 30 review. Hello and welcome to the Hideout. My name is Jason Bailey and with me is co-contributor
Dave Beaudry. I wasn't ready.
Dave, never ready. Well, you'd better be ready because we're talking about something very, very important today. It's actually a very sobering episode. I may not be all wonderful and fun like usual, because I'm so much goddamn fun as it is.
Jason has been on suicide watch for the last 24 hours.
I actually probably should have been. The only thing that could have made last night's events any worse is if a certain somebody...
Triple H is not the World Heavyweight Champion.
Thank God.
It could be worse.
Oh, it could have been way worse, way worse. Anyway, we're here to review WrestleMania 30, give our comments, insights, feedback, the whole deal. We here at the Hideout actually give it 2 thumbs up on the technicality. The WWE Network came through and all those concerns that we had in the previous review, like, hey, this better not fuck up like the NXT situation. It absolutely worked phenomenally on the technical side.
I mean, I think from a technological standpoint, I think WrestleMania 30 gets 2 thumbs up, 2 middle fingers, and it's always great to be back in the Silverdome.
Silverdome, yes. And that brings us to our next topic real quick is the opening of WrestleMania 30. My God. I don't know about you guys out there, because we were marking the fuck out to have what I consider the 3 gods of WWE in there simultaneously.
It's being called the Mount Rushmore segment, which I think is actually fairly
very good,
apropos.
Very good. I mean, you've got the 3 most recognizable talents that ever came out of the WWE.
Outside of, well, RoboCop wasn't WWE, so yes, I was going to say outside of RoboCop, but outside of Lawrence Taylor.
He always has to remind me of RoboCop. But at any rate, it was fantastic and a great start to WrestleMania 30, 3 decades of WrestleMania.
There's a couple things that made that so special. I mean, the big one was Hogan comes out and it started awkward as all hell. Like, he was flubbing left and right. He called the WWE the WWF and then went back to E and it was like WWFE Network.
And by the way, this whole segment, this was Cole's best call in the last decade.
He thinks he's at WrestleMania 3. But here's the thing. He not only called the Superdome the Silverdome once, he did it twice.
He did it twice.
And you could tell, like, someone off camera, like, next to the hard cam was, like, waving like crazy.
Well, I think it was also the audience, because he was, Hogan was listening.
He was looking at someone specifically, though, because then you saw his facial expression change, and then he was like, oh, I mean the Superdome. So that was just awkward. And then,
but it was funny already. But
it was in a car crash kind of way. But then the glass crash. So Austin comes out, and there's going to be no physical contact, nor should there be. Hogan would fall apart if he
Austin can
down.
barely do it. Hogan can't do it anymore.
But you had that moment where they were nose to nose and toe to toe, and just that shot. Awesome. That shot, just goosebumps. And then Austin made it all the better because instead of, like, a lot of guys would have just ignored the previous kind of awkwardness and ignored it and tried to make like it didn't happen to make it go away, Austin, being who he is, owned it.
Yeah.
And completely made it awesome.
Yeah, he did.
Because the first thing he does is he comes out, he looks at Hogan, he's like, always good to be back in the Silverdome. And all of a sudden, like, just the fact that he had the balls to acknowledge it on air and call Hogan out on it made that so much more interesting.
Very good.
What's happening now?
Yeah, it was very good.
And then Rock, being the pro, when he came out, he totally took that ball and ran with it. And then Hogan brought it all the way back around. At the
end when they're all doing their catchphrases back to back. A good piece of business.
It was a fantastic beginning. You could not have opened the show better, I don't think.
You could not.
Triple.
A+, absolutely fantastic opening. And that's about as good as it got for Jason, but we're gonna go into some particulars.
And it was all downhill.
It was all fucking downhill from there.
Then the opener with Triple H and Daniel Bryan. I thought the match was perfectly good. I enjoyed it. I thought it told a good story. It did what it needed to do, and it got the event set up for the main event. I thought it was. I wasn't blown away by the match, but it was what I expected, and I thought they both delivered to the best of their ability.
I thought it was completely boring dog shit, and the reason why is because Triple H was obviously the ring general in there, as he should be, I guess. But Brian works at much better at a higher pace, and he just wasn't showcased correctly. And if you wanted to get that match out of the way, which definitely I wanted the match out of the way, you could have done it quicker than however it was, 40 minutes or whatever.
Next match was the Shield versus New Age Outlaws and Kane. I heard that some stuff, either the Triple H match or combination of Triple H match in the opening interview went over time, so they had to cut that match short. I was great with it. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, it's too short to raise a match. No, it was fantastic. It's told the story of the Shield just being these ass kickers.
And by the way, whether they wrap up the Shield or they keep it going, that was great.
It was great.
That you could use that as a storybook ending either way.
Because it was a quick match. It did not feel like it was rushed. Like, it made sense.
Everything they did had purpose.
Had absolute purpose. Like, it was great when the Outlaws came out and then their entrance got cut off.
They didn't even get to do oh, you didn't know? And they didn't even get to that.
He was talking about respect or something, and then all of a sudden you got interrupted,
Here
which is
comes
great.
the Shield.
They come out with the masks on, which looked badass, and then they just start wrecking fools. And it worked. It told the story they needed to tell. It got the Shield over huge.
Which they're already over.
I was 100% behind that. I thought it was a great match. I don't think it was hurt by how short it was, and it did what it needed to do. So the Battle Royal. The Battle Royal was one of the things that they had actually, I think, done a very good job building up to leading into the event. They really had sold it as important. They'd really hyped it up. It was going to be a career maker for whoever was in it. The problem was, they built it up as this thing, and then while they're fucking around with the toy set in the back, like, they didn't even announce the match was happening. They just cut back to the ring. All of a sudden, everybody's already in the ring, and then Sheamus is coming out.
That's something that I thought, if you're going to have Hulk Hogan be the goddamn host, maybe he should have come out for this one. You know what I mean?
You have him announce it. You have them show the trophy ahead of time. Like, they completely blundered the beginning of that match. A couple high points that need to be touched. Kofi Kingston deserves better than what they're giving him. His athletic abilities are outstanding. I think he's not bad on the mic. I need to see him develop a little bit more of a character, but I think he's got it in him. But that thing last night where he flew over the ring post and then landed, he basically had to flat back on the floor to keep his feet up. He kind of landed on the steps. That took so much physical ability, and he took so much of a risk because that was such a dangerous spot for him to do. Reward this man with something. So the match was all right, but it did what it was supposed to do in that it looks like Cesaro's going out on his own, and he has potential to be a massive star. I'm not sold on his character or his mic work yet, but dude, he's got crazy ability.
Yeah.
So they put him in the Battle Royal, and they used it to elevate him, which was fantastic. The ending of the Battle Royal, flawless.
Yeah.
The right guys were in at the end.
Yeah.
And then the ending note with him, it was kind of a throwback to WrestleMania 3, where you had him slam, the Giant, but he held him up there and threw him over the top rope. And
it's unbelievable how strong he is. And
he doesn't look it. And Jesus, he can lift a house.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not just what he did last night, but just everything that he does. He showcases a lot of times his just raw strength that he has. And, I mean, he's sort of like one of these turn of the last century kind of strongmen that they don't look like they should be able to do what they're doing, but he does it. He's just amazing what he's doing in there.
So he gets the win. Cena Wyatt. And I have more to say about this than you do. The build-up, I think it's not the fault of the individual guys as far as the build-up goes. I think the individual characters were doing the best they could. I thought the structure of their build-up was flawed. They were a solution looking for a problem. So they were trying to really base the match off of the psychological story, which is great. I'm for that, but this wasn't it.
Nope. Yeah, you should have had a better lead-up, and you should have had a better... I mean, you got what you got with John. John Cena's not exactly subtle. So it's like he went from this to that.
He plays to the back row. We're talking about the lack of development of a story. And the one story that kind of in spite of themselves, it seemed at times, that they ended up absolutely nailing was the ascension of Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan ends up in the main event in triple threat for the heavyweight title. And I thought all three guys really played their roles well. I thought the match was exciting. I thought it told a great story. Batista is a beast when you use him well. His most high pressure match since coming back by far. I thought he delivered. Orton can get it done. they told a good story. It was Attitude Era booking where you had the run-ins with Triple H and Stephanie running back out.
Yeah.
They did that 6 spot on the table through the whatever country. Was it the Spanish or the French that went down?
I think it was the Spanish, and ultimately, legitimately, we were concerned for Randy Orton, the way he landed.
I was going there.
His lower back
he
on
landed
a monitor.
right on a TV monitor, and it looked like he was legit hurt. And then Batista didn't know what to do. So there was a minute there where it kind of lagged, where Batista, not exactly a ring general necessarily, didn't know what to do because Orton's down. He can't touch Bryan because
that storyline,
Bryan's getting loaded onto a stretcher. So, but luckily Orton, to his credit, you don't know how hurt he was, but he kept it going.
Yeah.
And they got to where they needed to go.
Going into WrestleMania 30, Dan Bryan had said something that was very exciting and interesting to me. He had released this statement basically saying, and by the way, he's the greatest human in the world, which is, you can see it through the camera. I mean, people really pick up on, he's down to earth, he's humble, he's hardworking, all this good stuff. But he actually said that every year...
He's just a common man.
He's just a common man.
Working hard as he can.
Every year at WrestleMania, the performer that walks away with everyone going, that was the best match on the card, is The Undertaker. He said, this year, I want to walk away and have everyone say, I had the best performance of the year. I want to have the best match on the card at WrestleMania 30. Okay?
Bryan wins.
Bryan wins, by far. He did have the best match. However, what is very odd about this is that ultimately, not that it was a pissing contest between Taker and Bryan, but this WrestleMania, in my opinion, is going to be known less for Daniel Bryan's victory and more for Undertaker's defeat.
Guys.
It is so Daniel Bryan did win. He won in that sense of he had the best matches, but at the same time, he lost in the fact of what it's going to be highlighted in the permanence of history this WrestleMania was about.
I don't think Brock Lesnar, from a business perspective, is the guy who should have been elevated to that level. Now, we'll talk in a minute about possible reasons for why that was. The big tragedy to me here, and I'm overspeaking it, of course, but the sad thing is not that Undertaker lost to Brock Lesnar. It was the fact that Undertaker lost to Brock Lesnar in what was really an awful match. The build-up started great. I love that opening where weeks ago where he stabbed him with a pen and threw him through the table and stuff. It started off hot.
It started off okay.
The problem is because both of them were kind of on a part-time schedule, and also Undertaker's physical capabilities are not what they used to be, to where they kept them separate. They didn't show up all that much, so their interactions were very, very limited. And by the time we got to the match, it was like we haven't really seen anything further. It peaked in its first week, and then they went nowhere after that. So going into it, Lesnar wasn't really built as a credible threat because most of the time he just kind of stood there and looked confused while Heyman was doing the hype job, and God bless Paul Heyman.
Thank God.
But
good promo work from Heyman.
So going into it, it was a preconceived notion that Lesnar would lose. Now this worked fabulously as a surprise, but again, how they got there failed. The match was not good. Now we know that Undertaker got a severe concussion early in the match, which I do think affected things. But even before that, it wasn't. They were miscommunicating left and right. It was sloppy. It was not interesting.
The lead up to it was so underwhelming that no one really expected it. All the smarts in wrestling, you're looking at two of them right here. We didn't expect it at all, simply because this didn't benefit anybody. It didn't benefit the character. It didn't benefit Brock Lesnar in any capacity.
Not really. Short term, sure, but I don't think long term it does.
Long term, it doesn't go to anybody who truly is going to be there all the time for another maybe decade, that really lives, eats, sleeps the business. But ultimately, we've had a whole day to really kind of think about it, I guess. I think that he was gonna drop this maybe to whoever he was facing this year, because if the Taker that we saw walk into that ring last night went anymore, I don't think that he could even survive. He just seemed to be barely functionable in this match. I just can't believe how much Undertaker seemed to lose in 12 months. It just was sort of like you were watching, even at the beginning, a completely different performer. Okay, we're not such marks that we don't look at what it is. I could tell right away. I was talking during the match the fuck is this? The strikes were so goddamn sloppy. The movements were sloppy. There was no communication. For whatever kind of
mistiming,
whatever kind of rehearsal work that Taker usually puts into a match, either Lesnar was not done or it was done, and Lesnar and Taker just didn't meld.
The ending was the only truly memorable special
moment of this match.
And what they did play right was and they've always been very good at these specific moments, in that after the pinfall, it was silent. Cole, I think, just said the streak is over or whatever it was. But then the commentators didn't speak for like a good another minute and a half or however long it was. It felt like it was a while. And that Vince the producers were in their ear saying, silent, don't say a word. And the cameras were just going around the audience, just silently just getting the reactions of the crowd. And you could not, you couldn't write that. There's a genuine, palpable sense of what did we just watch.
Lesnar didn't need any more accolades to build him, personally or his character. He didn't need the streak in his backpack of, look who I am. Whereas if you had given it to a CM Punk, that would have been great, not just for the character, but for the business at hand. And it also would have satisfied all these people that fucking hate John Cena. Which I said, if they're going to get rid of Taker, when they take him to the glue factory, they're going to give him to John Cena, because that's just what this company does.
And I think that would have been a bad move, but I think Cena would have been a better move than Lesnar.
The highlight is definitely looking on your TV, looking at that audience who didn't buy into this match at all, not at all. For 20, 25 minutes, however long this...
It was like 22 or something
this last match took. And then when... Brock Lesnar cleanly defeats The Undertaker, there is a dramatic seismic shift in the audience response.
This is died.
It was not just died. I thought the crowd was dead. Anyway, they were not invested in it at all.
It sounded like the Saitama Super Arena in Japan. It's just like everyone's just sitting there.
It's just a lot of very golf claps. No one was standing. I saw some very spectacular moves that they were beating the shit out of each other at times. The audience didn't participate in any of that. When he did lose, will be the highlight of this WrestleMania. For the people who have come in to watch wrestling, who were brought in by a family member or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whoever, who finally have latched on to Daniel Bryan, great. I'm sure that may be the moment for them. For those of us who have been involved in loving this sport for as long as we have, I don't give a fuck what anyone says. It is the moment that will be remembered from this WrestleMania, and it is something that is so shocking that if that was what they intended to do, you fucking succeeded. You did succeed. The audience is absolutely flabbergasted. There's shock, outrage, goes back to shock. Then there's just disgruntled behavior. It's it was such a unique feeling that you just don't get anymore in wrestling.
The crowd was still so shocked that, the driving force going into this event was Daniel Bryan's ascension. And then when that match started, it was the triple threat. Bryan's in for the title. Crowd was dead for
it took 5 to 10 minutes for the audience to get back into WrestleMania.
And it's a credit to those guys, not just Bryan, though he deserves a lot of it as well, but also Batista and Orton, that they were able by the end to get them back and deliver it home.
Ultimately, this WrestleMania, it was the moment, the WrestleMania moment, was the beginning with the three gods of WWE all in the ring at the same time and Taker losing. This is huge. It is a huge moment. And I want to say this real quick. I know we're running a little long, but you remember a few years ago, but 2 or 3 years ago, they had that match with Triple H. Shawn Michaels was the ref. They were in the cage. They call it the end of the era.
I was actually just going to say, in my head, I was just actually going to say that this was truly the end of the era.
They kept building this matchup as end of era, which of course I didn't understand when it was happening because it wasn't. There's two things I'd like to say about that. The first thing is I think there was an ending of an era many years ago when The Rock faced Steve Austin. And in his Steve Austin's final WrestleMania.
WrestleMania 19 in Safeco in Seattle.
And then Austin effectively, he was around and he was doing stuff, but that was
retired.
That was it. that was an end of a fucking era where Austin was like, hey, there's my victory.
Yeah.
I'm off into the sunset. That was an ending of an era, okay? All these years have gone by. To me, that's sort of when this modern era started to begin, the PG shit and all that started to happen. I can affirmatively tell you that we are now in a new era. That WrestleMania 30 has
Relaunched.
now done something that is a marker in time, being WrestleMania 30 on the WWE Network, Undertaker loses his streak, and Daniel Bryan,
Bryan's ascension.
who is considered somebody that is not this cookie cutter champion that the WWE has always had, even if it's someone like Stone Cold fighting authority. This literally, with Taker losing and Daniel Bryan becoming the champion, we are in a new era. An era has ended. Overall, my takeaway on it is we're shocked they succeeded. And
Everything felt like it mattered.
whether it was done correctly or not, that's another debate. But here we are. We're definitely in a new era now.
Yeah. What about
Oh, shit.
Trivia Mania?
Trivia Mania. What is this? This is the game that we played last night. We played this in between the entrances that we didn't care about in the commercials. It's an absolutely fantastic game.
Cue the Jeopardy music.
By the way,
You can do that in editing, right?
I can.
Jeopardy, yeah.
And by the way, if he gets them all, he did produce this from his pocket. Here we go. What Midwestern state served as host to the first 2 Survivor Series? You had this last night, son.
I did. It was Ohio.
It was Ohio. You already had these, man.
I just pulled one out of the box. I
Whatever.
didn't
Oh,
know.
yeah.